Hello, I'm Jerry Fort. Gonna read a story out of a book. This is New York. This is gonna be the state. Just saying that now so I can get that out of the way. I like to have that up there so that when I'm looking at my vids, I can kind of tell which one is which. So this is a book by Michael Teitelbaum called The Scary States of America, 50 Weird and Terrifying Stories, one from each state based on true events. So New York, let's see. What's it say? What's the story on New York? Impressions of a missing boy. Impressions. Does that mean there's like clues of where he was, but then he's not there anymore? Impressions. I don't know. Excuse me a minute. Let me get... I just got through eating my lunch. Get some water nearby because reading can dry out your throat so bad. There we go. Okay, let's see what this is about. One of my buddies who uses the name Psychic Freak, in parentheses PF, texted me about a woman in upstate New York. This is the text, okay? PF is paraguay, and I mean, PF is the Psychic Freak, and paraguay is paraguay. So you'll know when I say, okay, Psychic Freak says, PF, yo, Jay, got a great psychic story for you. Paraguay, I already knew that. PF, what? Are you messing with me? Paraguay, nope. Yesterday I had a vision that you would text me today with a story. PF, serious? Paraguay, yeah. PF, whoa. How come those psychic powers are rubbing off on me? I know just as many psychics as you do. Paraguay, guess I'm just lucky. By the way, I'm totally messing with you. PF, come on, man. Don't do that to me. I should have known you're already too weird to have psychic powers, too. Paraguay, thanks, I guess. So what's the story? PF, this really happened to some lady my mom knows upstate, named Mary Barber. Her kid got lost in the woods. Here's what she told me. It all started as one of the best days I can remember. My husband, Philip, my 6-year-old son, Timmy, and I were at a community picnic at beautiful Seneca Lake. The sun was shining brightly that warm Sunday morning in August, giving no hint of the panic and terror that was going to come. As the afternoon slowly slid toward evening, families began packing up their coolers and picnic blankets. It was then that Philip and I noticed that Timmy wasn't with the group of kids with whom he'd been playing soccer. Tim, Philip called, raising his voice enough to be heard over the din of happy picnickers. He got no response. Timmy, I shouted, running this way and that, and desperately looking in all directions as the sun started to set. As panic set in, I rushed through the crowd, frantically asking if anyone had seen Timmy. A few of the kids said they had been playing soccer with him, but that the game had ended about half an hour earlier. Tim, Philip shouted again. Timmy, I called out, the hopeless feeling in my gut growing more intense by the second. Others joined in, calling out for our son. Everyone stopped what they were doing and fanned out around the picnic grounds. Philip called the local sheriff, Marty Sampson. And within a few minutes, more than 100 people, including the sheriff, his deputies, and members of the fire department rescue squad, were combing the dense woods surrounding the lake's picnic area. As darkness crept in, Philip and I were frantic. Well, no, not frantic. That's too feeble a word to describe what I was feeling. I was hysterical at that point. The police and rescue squad distributed as many flashlights as they could gather, and the search continued. Everyone yelled Timmy's name as loudly as they could. It was now pitch black outside, and thick fog started rolling in off the lake. I felt completely helpless, but I was not going home without my son. That's when Clark Kasem, a firefighter from the rescue squad, suggested that we call his tenant a man named John McMahon, who was known in the area for his psychic powers. I didn't believe in psychics, and neither did Sheriff Sampson, but I was desperate and ready to take help from anyone. I don't go in for all that stuff, Clark, Sheriff Sampson said. You know that. This guy could send us off on a wild goose chase for all we know. Sheriff, I don't see the harm in talking to this man, I said, fighting back tears. We got to do something. He's got a good reputation, Marty, Clark said to the sheriff. We've got nothing to lose. Sheriff Sampson nodded. Then Clark called up John McMahon, who agreed to come down to the lake. I'll need an item of Timmy's clothing, John said, hurrying from his car a few minutes later. I fumbled through Timmy's backpack, barely able to open the zipper. My hands were shaking so much. I fished out his jacket and handed it to John. Closing his eyes, John McMahon grasped the jacket tightly. We all turned off our flashlights. A tense silence descended. Minute after excruciating minute slipped by in the total darkness. What's this guy doing, I thought. We're wasting our time. Then the psychic spoke softly. I see a stone house with a row of overturned boats. That's the old boathouse on the far side of the lake, Philip said. Is he in there? That's awfully far from the picnic area. Maybe, John replied. That's the clearest image I received. Let's go, I said. Mary, this fog is impossible, the sheriff said. I think we have to wait. I'm not waiting, I screamed, switching my flashlight back on. My boy is out there. Someone may have taken him, or he could be hurt. I'm going. I hurried toward the edge of the lake, unable to see much more than my own flashlight beam slicing through the thick fog. I'd go too. I'd be on my way. Nothing was going to be stopping me. Philip ran along beside me. The sheriff and John McMahon followed. The fog was too thick to risk taking a boat across the lake. We were going to have to walk around the edge. The evening chill turned my fingers numb, but I gripped the cold metal flashlight as if it were a lifeline leading directly to Timmy. As we traveled around the lake, the open shore gave way to a dense area of woods. The first fallen leaves crunched under my feet as I wended my way between the trees. Hoo, hoo, hoo. That's what it says. The piercing cry startled me, and I dropped the light. Everything went dark. The fog closed in on me like an evil spirit, and I felt my heart pounding in my chest. An icy hand grabbed my arm, and I screamed. Mary, it's me, Philip said, shining his light on the ground so I could retrieve my own. You got so far ahead of us. I thought we'd lost you too. Let's keep going, I said, flipping my light back on and plunging ahead. The wind picked up, rattling leaves in the barely visible trees, but I plowed forward, keeping the shoreline to my left as best I could. I spotted a building in the distance. The boathouse, I cried. Tim! I ran toward the stone structure. Rowboats were lined up along the near side of the building. I swung around to the front and stopped at a small wooden door. I get a very strong impression of Tim inside this building, said John as he ran up beside me. He clasped Tim's jacket firmly in his hands. Tim! I shouted. Silence from within. I grabbed the rusty doorknob. I wanted to open the door more than I've ever wanted anything in my life. but I couldn't bear to find out what I feared was on the other side. Yeah, could be bad. I shook the wobbly knob, bit my lower lip, and then flung the door open. "Tim!" I choked out a strained cry as I swept my beam over the cobweb-covered interior. Among the broken boats and oars I saw nothing, no Tim. I don't know if I was more relieved that he wasn't lying in there, hurt or worse, or more panicked that we were no closer to finding him than we had been an hour ago. I turned to John McMahon, furious. "Why did you bring us here? Why are you doing—" "Wait, Mary." Philip cut me off. "I found something." Kneeling down beside an overturned boat, Philip picked up Timmy's baseball cap, which peeked out from the edge of the boat. "Oh, no," I cried, stepping back, nearly fainting. Was Timmy under there? Was he? Philip grabbed the edge of the boat and flipped it over. I gasped as I trained my light on the spot. Nothing. No sign of Tim. "Tim was obviously here," Philip said, gripping the cap close to his chest, "but he moved on." "If I may," John said gently, reaching out his hand. Philip handed him the cap. Again, John closed his eyes and held the cap for what felt like an eternity. "I get a very strong sense of a small log cabin next to a large rock," John said. "Is he alive? Tell me," I screamed. "I can't tell," John replied calmly, "but I think we should go this way." He pointed to a trail leading away from the boathouse and into the woods. Philip led the way now. I followed. What else could I do? I had pinned my hopes on the powers of this man. So far he had found Tim's cap. That was no coincidence, right? But what would we find at this cabin? A shirt? A sneaker? I pushed the horrible thoughts away and stumbled blindly through the fog, caught up in the vague hope that we'd find Tim alive. We moved deeper into the woods, following a path that was harder and harder to make out. This all looks the same, I thought. Where is this log cabin? There are no buildings here. We're in the middle of the woods for no reason. And then the trail ended. Dense trees closed in all around us. The loud rustle of leaves in the high branches seemed to mock our efforts. We had come to a dead end. "Where did you take us?" I screamed at McMahon. "Where is my son?" An eerie howl split the night. "Coyotes," the sheriff said. The howling grew louder as more and more animals joined in the blood-curdling chorus. Tim was still out there among them. McMahon remained silent. He gripped the cap once more and closed his eyes. "There," he said softly, pointing to his right along the tree line. I whipped my flashlight beam to the right, and it fell upon a large boulder. "There's the rock," I cried, running toward it, tripping over tree roots as I struggled to keep my balance. "But where's the cabin? This is wrong." "Tim!" Philip shouted. Again, no answer. I reached the rock. There was no sign of Tim. Taking a deep breath, I stepped around the rock and trained my light on the ground. No Tim. But my beam caught something familiar. I knelt down and picked up a plastic toy log cabin. It was Tim's, part of a Frontier playset that we had bought him for his birthday. He had been here, but how long ago, and where was he now? John took the toy in his hands. "That way," he said confidently, pointing behind us. Would we finally find Tim, or just another of his possessions? I rushed in the direction John indicated, ignoring the branches scratching my arms and face. Then I tripped over something buried in the leaves and found myself sprawled out under a tree. Crawling back through the leaves, I discovered that I had tripped over the body of my son. "Tim!" I screamed, shining my light into his face. His eyes were closed. I felt his ruby-colored cheek. It was cold. "No!" I screamed. Then I heard him breathe. "He's alive." I shook him gently, and he opened his eyes. "Mommy?" he cried, and then burst into tears. "I got lost. I was so cold. I called for you over and over, but couldn't find you or Daddy. I tried to walk home, but couldn't find you." "Thank you, John McMahon," I said, weeping with joy. Thank you for finding my son. Man, that could have ended up bad. Could have had a very, very sad ending. If those coyotes they would smell him. If they would have got a hold of him, he would have been their dinner. Good thing they found him. Man, I was afraid to get to the ending of this story to find out that he was dead. But pretty wild story. There you go. If you like these kind of stories, the paranormal, you collect these books, get you a copy of this one. This is a pretty good one. Excuse me, pretty interesting. Scary States of America, 50 Weird and Terrifying Stories, one from each state based on true events by Michael Teitelbaum. Okay, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.